Hello, everyone. My name is Eirik Lindebjerg, and I'm the Global Plastic Policy Manager of WWF. I would like to present to you a new report that we've done together with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the Boston Consulting Group on why a new UN treaty on plastic pollution both is good for the environment and also good for business. Plastic pollution is a global problem all the way throughout the value chain. Plastic products are being traded on a global market. Plastic waste is being traded on a global market. And when plastic pollution finally enters into the environment and enters into the ocean, it knows no borders and is floating around in our global commons in a transboundary way. That's why we need to tackle plastic pollution through global cooperation. However, today, the current international system for dealing with plastic pollution is almost non-existent. We don't have the global regulatory framework to deal with the problem in an efficient ways. We don't have global rules. We don't have global clear obligations. We don't have a global common reporting system, and we don't have the necessary financial mechanisms for supporting developing countries in their efforts to stop plastic pollution. In our report, we interviewed a lot of practitioners, businesses, member states on what the current landscape looks like and what would be needed. We found that voluntary initiatives, although an important way of pushing the bar and leading the way, still lack the scale to drive systems change. If we want to have the entire industry on board, we need a global binding framework. We also found that current regulations are misaligned versus both the entire value chain and the problem drivers. An increasingly amount of political attention to the problem in the last years have led to a sharp increase in the amount of regulation. However, that regulation sometimes don't really target the products or the problems that are really the large part of the issue, but can sometimes be more symbolic. This regulatory landscape and this fragmentation also provides a significant cost for businesses. We also found that foundational reporting capabilities are lacking. There are huge gaps in transparency and in the data that is being reported, and it is difficult for any initiative that want to solve the plastic pollution crisis to set any baselines or to measure their impact. There is no agreement on the right measurement methodologies either. Finally, we found that targeted interventions are needed to accelerate change. We found that a lot of investment is needed, and for that investment to be enabled, we need a proper global enabling framework that pulls everyone in the right direction and creates a stable investment horizons for those investors that need to drive this change. We therefore propose a new UN treaty on plastic pollution that builds on existing initiatives, but that to create a binding global framework. Several components can be possible in such a global agreement. We propose an overarching objective of the elimination of plastic leakage. We've also proposed 4 pillars. Of course, this would be up for negotiations, but maybe these 4 pillars then can provide some insight into what is possible with the new global agreement. First, we need to agree on a harmonized set of definitions and standards across the products, across the value chain, and to make sure that we're all on the same plate when it comes to defining the problem and measures needed. Second, we need harmonization of policies. We need global targets, national targets that aggregate to the global change required. And we need national action plans to make sure that we both have the right planning horizons, that the policies are developed based on best available science, and that we know that all countries are pulling in the same direction. We need a better reporting system. We need to know if the measures that we put in place are working. And again, we need science to guide our efforts. Finally, we need a much better system for implementation support. We propose that a global financial mechanism or a fund is included in a new global agreement on plastic pollution. We've seen a rapid increase in the number of countries that are calling for a global agreement on plastic pollution, and also countries that have expressed an interest in exploring further this global agreement. While we see an increasing amount of governments going behind the idea, we've also seen a strong call from business. On plasticpollutiontreaty.org, you'll find businesses that have signed a manifesto calling for a new treaty on plastic pollution. These businesses come from all over the world and are big global corporations that face some of these problems outlined around tackling plastic pollution today. They've also made their own commitments, but come to a realization that in order to solve the plastic pollution crisis, we need a global regulatory framework that drags everyone along. To summarize the finding of our report, I'll show you a short video.
Our ecosystems are critical to our survival. Yet every year, an estimated 11 million metric tons of plastic enters our oceans. Despite growing efforts to stem the flow and create a more circular plastics economy, plastic pollution continues to fall through the gaps at an ever faster rate. A UN treaty on plastic pollution has the potential to address the problem at scale, and many countries are already calling for such a solution that closes the gaps but works for businesses at the same time, with less regulatory complexity, a stable investment landscape, and simplified reporting, while at the same time benefiting the planet too, protecting our environment from plastic pollution. A global problem needs a global solution. A global agreement on plastic pollution can unlock a cleaner future for all.